Hello, I'm Mark Rice of Cutter Networks. Today I want to talk with you about a multiplexer. Obviously the first thing I have to do is to narrow that down because say multiplexer could mean or encompass a wide range of things. For purposes of this conversation, we're talking about something that can terminate and handle breaking out of 1 to 4 T1s or E1s. In other words, 124 time slots and roughly 8 megs on the back plane. And we could be talking about a modular unit, or we could be talking about fixed configurations. In this case, I prefer modular units, and the reason is very simple, and that is that you're able to change them to add services. A lot of times you think you might only need, let's say, 4 E&M ports, and at a later date you want to add some. You don't want to have to replace the whole unit, so modular units have a lot of advantages. At that point, we're going to talk about the RAD Megaplex 2100 and 2104. It certainly fits in those parameters. The 2100 and 2104 use the same I/O cards. They're the exact same. The difference between the two units is that the 2100 has the ability to have a redundant power supply and a redundant common logic. It has 12 I/O slots. The Megaplex 2104 is a smaller unit. It has a single power supply and a single common logic and only 5 I/O slots. Now there are all types of cards. There are cards for FXS, cards for FXO, E&M, and those cards are available for 4, 8, or 16 ports per card. Also, there are cards that do compression and cards that do not do compression, in other words, a straight PCM. Now, in the case of a 16-port card, obviously you can't have 16 RJs in the back of that little card, so it uses a high-density connector on the back, but you do get 16 channels out of it. In the case of the serial cards, there are serial data cards for low-speed data. These are common in utility applications where you need RS-232 low-speed serial. In some cases in the military they use RS-530 a lot. It just depends on exactly what you need. And those serial cards are available. Some of those are 2 ports, some are 4, some of them are 6 or 12 ports. It just depends on the particular data rate. Usually the lower the data rate, the more ports you can get per card. Those higher speeds require, generally speaking, you'll have only 2 ports on a higher speed card. These cards are, as I said, are interchangeable from one to the other. The Megaplex is found all over the world, literally. I mean, RAD's an international company, has been selling the Megaplex for quite some time, and one of the few companies still dedicating and focusing on the needs for utilities and carriers and things to migrate from the older TDM technology to the new IP technology. Now, when I say that, what am I talking about? Well, what I'm talking about is the fact that you may have initially purchased a Megaplex with the intent of using it for T1 or E1, and now you want to migrate to IP. Well, how do you do that? In the case of the Megaplex, it's actually pretty simple. You have a mainlink card that's a T1 card, you remove it, and you put in its place a IP mainlink card. Now, that IP mainlink card has some neat things all in itself. It has an internal switch, so that if you take a 100 megabit connection and come to that card, it takes the 8 megs that it needs for the services that you've multiplexed out and hands that to the Megaplex, giving that priority, and then passes the rest of the traffic along, the rest of the Ethernet bandwidth, along to what other device you may want to connect. You have a separate user port on there. Now, the Megaplex is found in railroads, air traffic control centers. It's used by carriers, the military. You'll find it in fire stations, police stations, utility, and enterprise. It's really been around and got a long proven track record of success. Let's take a closer look at one. Here we have the front of a Megaplex 2104. There are really only 3 LEDs on the front. There's one to show you that the power is on. Then there's an alarm and a test indicator. Other than that, there are no other indicators on the front of the unit. Here you have the left side of the Megaplex 2104. As you can see, there's a single fan. I don't have, on this particular unit, the handles and rack mount ears have not yet been put on here, but it is rack mountable and it comes with little ears to accomplish that, as well as handles to help you facilitate pulling it in and out. On the other side of the Megaplex 2104, we simply have ventilation holes here. There's no fan on this side of the unit. Here we have the back of a Megaplex 2104. This particular model has a AC power supply. As you can see, here's the on-off switch for the unit.
This is the common logic card, which of course is the main controlling card. And then there are 5 slots for the I/O cards. On the common logic card, we have a Ethernet control port. We have 2 alarm dry contact relays. We have a serial connection used for initial configuration when you're first assigning an IP address. Thereafter, most of the management will actually be done via this port. And you have these dip switches, which are primarily used with the upgrade of software revs and things of that type. Has some other features as well, but this is, as I said, most of the management, once you initially get it set up, is done via this Ethernet control port. Here we have the VC4 FXS card. You'll see that there's 4 RJ connectors right on the front of the card. Note that if you use this card, you will have to have ringer voltage supplied either via an external ringer, or if you have a 21 ohm 4, it's possible that you've ordered it with the internal ringer, which is my personal preference in the case of the smaller unit. Here I'm installing a VC4 E&M card. As you can see, the RJ connectors are right on the card itself. If you had a high density card like a VC8 or VC16 card, you would have a high density octal cable here, or in the case of the VC16 you actually have 2 of those. Here we have a module common in a lot of Megaplex applications. This is an ML2T1 module. As you can see, it has 2 T1 ports on it. These can be full or fractional T1s. It has a set of LED indicators for each of the lines. And additionally, it has a clocking port for those applications where you wish to provide external clocking. This is another very common module for the Megaplex. This is a VC16 E&M card. It provides 16 channels of E&M. Obviously, you couldn't put 16 connectors on the back of this on this card, so it uses a high density connector. There's 8 channels on each of these high density connectors, and you use a octopus cable that is ordered separately to break it out into the individual RJs. Okay, now you've taken a look at a Megaplex, or at least a 2104. You've looked at a few of the cards. If you have an application you'd like to discuss, I hope that you'll give us a call here at Cutter Networks. I'll be happy to talk with you. For more than 13 years, we've been helping customers find solutions for their data communications needs, and I look forward to the opportunity to work with you. You have a wonderful day. Thank you.